Silent Confessions, a night that redefined love. Welcome to Silent Confessions, where we delve deeply into untold stories of forbidden emotions, betrayal, and desires that teeter on the edge of morality. Today's story will challenge everything you thought you knew about love, commitment, and trust. This isn't merely a tale of infidelity. It's an intimate glimpse into a long marriage, where love shifts in unsettling ways, and dormant desires are reignited unexpectedly. Settle in for this breathtaking journey that promises to stir your emotions and leave you questioning the boundaries of love. I am Victoria, a 60-year-old woman who has shared 4 decades of marriage with Andrew, the man I once risked everything for. At 25, I defied my parents' warnings and eloped with him. Andrew was my world, kind, passionate, and idealistic. My fiery love for him felt unstoppable, even against the disapproving voices warning that passion cannot sustain a marriage forever. For years, Andrew was my partner in every sense of the word. Together, we built a family, raising 3 amazing children who are now scattered with their own lives. But as the years went on, our once hectic home faded into a silence that grew heavier with every passing year. The love is still there, but the fire that once burned wildly is now a steady, predictable glow. In my quiet moments, I find myself yearning for the person I used to be, the woman who braved the chaos of love, who felt alive with passion and longing. Recently, I had dismissed these wandering thoughts as natural. That is, until last night, when everything changed. It was an ordinary evening. I was in the kitchen, making Andrew's favorite stew, the mingling aroma of garlic and herbs, feeling oddly nostalgic as my mind drifted to our children. I wondered if Emily, our eldest, might come home for Christmas this year. The warmth of the memory wrapped around me, but it was quickly interrupted by the sound of the doorbell. I wasn't expecting anyone. Wiping my hands on a towel, I opened the door to find Daniel, Andrew's younger brother, grinning with that same mischievous charm he's always had. "Victoria?" His voice carried a playful warmth as the edges of his mouth pulled into a confident smile. "Is this how you greet your favorite brother-in-law?" "Daniel?" I exclaimed, laughing at the surprise. I invited him in, the rush of cold from the snowy night dissolving into the warmth of our home. He seemed to carry that air of electric energy wherever he went, a stark contrast to the serenity of Andrew. Daniel, all laughter and boldness, couldn't be more different from his thoughtful, quiet brother. "I was in town for business and thought I'd stop by. I hope I'm not interrupting." His voice lingered on the word interrupting, his eyes scanning my face for a reaction I wasn't sure how to give. "No, not at all," I replied, startled by the sudden liveliness he brought into the room. When Andrew saw Daniel, his entire face lit up. They embraced as old laughter filled the space that had for so long been void of such joy. The 3 of us sat around the dinner table, reminiscing about younger days, with wine softening the edges of long-forgotten stories. "Victoria," Daniel said suddenly, leaning back in his chair as his eyes held that familiar glimmer of playfulness. "Do you remember when I taught you to dance?" I chuckled, heat rising to my cheeks. "How could I forget? You stepped on my toes more times than I can count." Andrew joined in, his laugh deep and warm. "You were awful, Daniel. Absolutely hopeless, but I'll admit, persistent." Daniel stood and extended his hand to me, the action so unexpected I hesitated. "Care to let me redeem myself after all these years?" I turned to Andrew, feeling a flicker of unease, but he only smiled and nodded. Taking Daniel's hand, I allowed myself to be pulled to the center of the room. To my surprise, his movements were graceful, confident yet tender. As I swayed in his arms, his hand resting on the curve of my back, I was acutely aware of his warmth against me. His gaze bored into mine, steady and intense, sending an unexpected shiver rushing through my body. For a fleeting moment, it felt as if nothing else in the world existed, just Daniel and me. When the dance ended, I stepped back, my heart thudding against my ribs. Daniel's eyes lingered on mine longer than they should have, and I realized my hands still burned faintly from his touch. My gaze shifted to Andrew, whose face was unreadable. Something had shifted in the room, weighty and unspoken, leaving me to wrestle with emotions I hadn't felt in years. Later that night, the house had grown quiet again. Beside me in bed, Andrew reached for my hand, his touch uncharacteristically tentative. Victoria, he began, his voice soft, almost hesitant. Can I ask you something? Of course, I replied, my chest tightening with unease. His eyes searched mine deeply, the sincerity in them almost unnerving. Do you ever miss the excitement we used to have? The question caught me off guard. I fumbled for an honest answer. Sometimes, I admitted cautiously, but isn't that normal? He nodded slowly, his gaze distant. I've been thinking about ways to bring that excitement back, to give you what we've lost. Andrew, what do you mean? My voice wavered with equal parts unease and anticipation. He inhaled deeply, the words sliding from his lips with stunning clarity. I want you to spend the night with Daniel. Time seemed to freeze as his proposition settled into the space between us. Andrew, I managed, my voice barely above a whisper. What are you saying? I love you, he said earnestly, his hand clutching mine as if to anchor me to him. You deserve to feel alive again. His words sparked something in me, a surreal mixture of confusion, guilt, and undeniable longing. For a moment, I was unsure. Then a part of me that had remained dormant for so many years roared to life, curious and electrified by the thought. When Andrew returned a few moments later with Daniel in tow, I was trembling. Daniel's presence filled the room, his figure almost magnetic as he approached with slow, deliberate steps. Victoria, his voice was low, coaxing, as if he could sense the war raging within me. If this isn't what you want, just say so, and I'll leave. The sincerity in his tone disarmed me, his eyes searching mine, offering me an out. But Andrew's reassuring nod from the corner of the room unraveled any hesitation. Yes, I said quietly, my heart racing as I answered the even louder call of my own desires. Daniel's touch was firm, yet impossibly gentle, as though he understood the fragility of the moment. His hands roamed with care, igniting places of my body I'd forgotten could feel alive. The night unfolded slowly, every kiss, every caress peeling back the years I had spent locked in the safety of routine. The room was filled with the quiet symphony of our breaths, our whispers blending into the rhythm of the moment. Daniel's hands traced paths across my skin, his touch a perfect balance of control and tenderness, igniting fires I didn't know were still there. As the night deepened, the world outside seemed to fade away, leaving only us in this cocoon of desire and vulnerability. His kisses grew deeper, more urgent, each one unraveling a layer of restraint until there was nothing left but raw, unfiltered passion. In his arms, I rediscovered parts of myself I had long buried, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I felt utterly alive. Though scandalous, it became a rediscovery of me, of passion, of the complexity of love. I stole glances at Andrew, who sat watching with a calm understanding I never knew he possessed. His love somehow shone even brighter in that moment, illuminating an unexpected depth to our marriage. His lips found mine, the kiss starting soft, exploring, before deepening into something that left no room for hesitation. The barriers between us fell away, replaced by an all-consuming passion that made everything else disappear. My hands found their way to his chest, feeling the strong, steady beat of his heart beneath my fingertips, a rhythm that mirrored my own. The night unfolded with a sensuality that was both unexpected and breathtaking, a reminder of the depth of connection we shared, a connection that, despite everything, remained unbreakable. When morning came, I awoke with a strange clarity. The weight of what had happened lingered, but instead of regret, there was an unfamiliar sense of peace. Andrew's eyes met mine across the room, filled not with betrayal, but a love so deep it took me by surprise. I reached for him, my fingers grazing the back of his neck, pulling him closer until his lips met mine. The kiss was slow, exploratory, as though he was savoring every second, every inch of me. His hands roamed my body with a familiarity that felt new and electric, reigniting the passion of the night before. "You're everything to me," he whispered, his voice barely audible but filled with a sincerity that made my heart ache. In that moment, I realized that despite the complexities of what had happened, we were stronger, bound by a love that could weather anything. Daniel left shortly after with a lingering kiss on my cheek, his presence like a spark that had reignited something dormant within me. And when Andrew took me in his arms later that day, I realized the fire hadn't died between us. It had just transformed, waiting to be uncovered. As his lips met mine, The kiss was slow at first, tender and exploratory, before deepening into something more urgent. His hands moved over my body with a purpose, rediscovering every curve, every inch, as though memorizing me anew. Each touch was a silent declaration, a reminder that the passion between us hadn't faded. It had only matured, waiting for this moment to be reignited. And as we lay together afterward, tangled in the sheets in each other's arms, I realized that what we had wasn't just rekindled. It was something entirely new, a fire that burned brighter than I could have ever imagined. What would you do if faced with such a choice? Love isn't the same for everyone, and sometimes it takes unpredictable forms. This story dares to explore a path less traveled, challenging notions of commitment and intimacy while redefining what it means to truly love someone. Love isn't the same for everyone, and sometimes it takes unpredictable forms. If this tale compelled you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Silent Confessions for more stories that peel back the layers of human desire, trust, and vulnerability. What boundaries would you cross to rekindle the flames of your heart? Let us know in the comments below. See you in the next confession.